Welcome, everybody. I'm Craig Wortman, and I am so glad that you are joining me today. I hope this finds you all really well and safe and sound. The purpose of today's live session is to talk about virtual selling. What I hope we gain from this time together are some tips and techniques and approaches to help you stand out and break through in your communications and in selling virtually. And also to help everyone around you. How does that sound? I hope that sounds good. Let's get started. As we sprint through this quick half hour, please feel free to use the comment feature, and I'll jump in and out of that and pay attention. I can see people coming in. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, back to you. And also, please use the Q&A, that little one right in the middle of the bottom of your screen, the question and answer, because that'll allow me to pin some questions up. Hello, Suzanne. My friend Suzanne Mushin is in. Fantastic. But I'll use the question feature to come in and post a couple of questions and see if we can tackle a couple. I know we don't have much time. Our backup plan, which we will talk about in a few minutes, is if everything goes haywire and goes awry on Instagram, the internet, the bandwidth, I will ask you to direct message me in Instagram and I'll post some videos. That'll be our backup plan. Hope that sounds good. Okay, so to start us off, I would like to offer a definition of sales just to frame our conversation. So what is sales? This is a strange question. People always sort of stop and go, what is sales? Well, what we believe to be true at Sales Engine, and you know this from our social media accounts, what we believe to be true at the Kellogg Sales Institute and my amazing team there, is that sales is one thing. It's about helping people make progress in their lives. My friend David Schoenthal, Professor Schoenthal, a colleague of Professor Mushin's and mine at Kellogg, I heard him say this out loud some years ago to a group when he was talking about his work in the jobs to be done theory. And he said, everyone you come across is trying to make progress in their lives. And it stopped me in my tracks. And I got to thinking what a great phrase that is and how true it is. And it also caused me to think that the thing that I love most about this profession, this chosen profession of mine, which is selling and teaching, which is a form of selling, is the chance to help people make progress. As some of you know, I teach along with Suzanne and David and other folks at Kellogg. I teach a number of MBA and executive MBA courses, and they all center around how we as individuals can show up, stand out, and break through in every room we're in. Now, the reason we're doing these Insta Live sessions is that, of course, that room has changed. And it's changed fundamentally, at least for a period of time, where the room's gotten maybe smaller. The world, in a really cool way, has gotten bigger as things have gotten more just interesting and strange and scary and all of those things all bundled together. And what that should cause us to be thinking about, and the reason we wanted to do these sessions is that it should cause us to think about how we show up the same and how we show up differently for people in our lives. And that means when we're reaching out to customers and we're teaching classes, or we're selling, or we're interviewing and selling ourselves, or whether we're just communicating, we should be thinking, what are some of the tips and techniques for how I can show up differently and stand out and break through in a situation where everyone is trying to figure out the same thing, how we might be those people who are helping others in this time. So that's really the gist of what I wanted to share with you today. I think the main phases, if you will, of virtual selling or virtual communication there are three: preparation, delivery, and follow through. And this won't be a shock to any of you who know me, who have been in my sessions on running high impact meetings. So much of what we know about meetings and how poorly they are run come from a lack of preparation and a lack of follow through. And then of course the fat middle, the delivery, is often very weak. And we know this from a lot of research. Now, here in our session, I'd really like to sink in and take some of your questions around virtual selling and running and being great communicators in a virtual space. And I'm going to focus here mostly on delivery But I will make mention of preparation and follow through, those wings. But here I'm going to focus mostly on delivery because that's where, most of the energy is, not to suggest that those other two things aren't absolutely critical. They are. Hey, Andrew. Hello, everybody. I'm just seeing your comments as they come in. I love that you are here. Thank you for joining us. So, first, a couple of thoughts on preparation and follow through, and then I'm going to go to the wings, and then I'm going to go back to the middle. We know from research that salespeople and people in general, and myself included, are usually not great at preparation and not great at follow through. And, there are libraries of books written about poor meeting management. There are books like Death by Meeting, all kinds of stuff. And so one of the ways to think about this in a virtual selling environment is you can stand out and break through with people simply by being really prepared and by being really great at your follow through. So that surround of the actual meeting can make a huge difference if we just take it more seriously. I think one of the things that this new world and the room changing, this phrase I've been using a lot, the room changing on us, has caused in a positive way is for us to rethink some of the behaviors that we've taken for granted. Everybody on this Insta Live session knows that when we're at work, we go in and out of meetings and we don't often think consciously about this construct. And so what this virtual world has created is an opportunity for all of us to think this through and raise our game. That's what this is all about. I mean, if you follow Professor Andrew Sykes, who's here with us, if you follow Professor Mushin on social media, the three of us and our colleagues are always talking about how do we get better, and especially at a time like this when we research at Kellogg what makes up high performance. When we think about virtual selling, one of the things you can do that you can index on right away is preparation and follow through. So really quickly, I'm going to bounce through these and then we're going to sink into delivery for a little bit, and I would love to take some of your questions. So preparation, just a few things to think about. Have a backup plan. Our backup plan, if this all goes to hell and haywire, I'll do some videos. That's a backup plan. Always have a backup plan. It shows and demonstrates to your clients and your colleagues and your friends that you're prepared and ready to pivot at a moment's notice with a backup conference line or whatever you need. Less is more. This is true in the physical world. It is absolutely true in the virtual world. Less is more. Take whatever agenda you have for that hour virtual meeting or that half-hour call or that Insta Live session, whatever it is, skinny it down by 35%. And I don't know if that number's right, folks, but it's something like that. Really, really skinny it down. And then try to back in some time at the wings for setup time. So one of the things I've found myself doing is a lot of these virtual sessions where it's on Zoom or GoToMeeting or WebEx or whatever it is. And we build in 5 minutes either before the clock starts and the whole team joins or right after, just to say, okay, here's how this is going to run. Here's our backup plan. Here's the slide with the phone number, all that sort of stuff. So plan on that. And then as we say in the physical world also, please plan to end early. You are giving people a gift. You're giving them the gift of preparation, and you're giving them the gift of brevity and conciseness in bringing things in for a landing early and saying, hey, folks, I know everybody's bouncing in and out of Zoom meetings or WebExes or whatever, Google Hangouts, but please, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end 5 minutes early and give you back 5 minutes of time just to run, grab a glass of water and sit back down. You're giving people a gift, doing people a favor. And then be conscious of what I call the green room elements. You'll be the judge as to whether I'm doing this well or poorly right now. Be careful of your surrounds. So you've got a background. I hope everybody likes the blue heron. If you've got, you're dressed up perhaps and not in sweatpants or whatever. Hopefully you are wearing pants. I am. They're jeans. I don't know if you can see those. And then what we say when we teach, when Professor Sykes, when Professor Mushin and I teach presentation and what we call presenting with panache, we talk about these green room elements and removing all barriers between you and your audience. And what that means is don't have a lot of distracting stuff behind you. Make sure you're dressed properly. Everything is set up, the camera angles, the lighting, all that sort of stuff. So these are the green room elements. That's just a few thoughts of many on preparation. As I'm going to ask you at the end for some feedback on this Insta Live session, If this is interesting and you'd like us to go deeper, we at Sales Engine and the Kellogg Sales Institute have created what we're calling pre-flight checklists for everything you have to get right to make sure you run a virtual session well. People appreciate that. Last thought on preparation, make it explicit. We share our pre-flight checklists with our clients and say, here's the click room, here's all the stuff we have to get, here's the green room stuff that we're gonna go through, and we do that stuff with them. Okay, so let's jump to the end of the meeting and talk about, I'm really glad you like the blue heron. Some of you do, some of you don't. Suzanne's not so sure. So follow through. Let's jump to the end of the meeting, then we're gonna go back to the fat middle, delivery, my favorite part. So follow through. In a virtual world, right, we're in this situation where we're going Zoom to Zoom, we're going into all these meetings, Google Hangout to Google Hangout. Thank you, Hunter. And one of the things that we love to encourage people to do is listen for ways to go above and beyond. And again, this is one of those things that may sound absolutely obvious to you, but one of the things that we often profess when we teach running physical meetings that does not go away in the virtual world is writing a thank you note after a meeting. Now, I know the mail's gotten all weird. I get that, but it is still a nice touch. They can leave your note in the mailbox for a couple of days and whatever and open it. It's still a touch. If that doesn't feel right, then wipe that off your list. I still do that. I have a stack of business cards upstairs and a stack of thank you notes and I'm writing thank you notes. Another way to go above and beyond in one of the advantages of the virtual world, of course, is we have a chat transcript or a comment transcript or a Q&A transcript. One of the ways we've been using this is to look at the chat transcript and see what questions that I didn't get to or we didn't get to and go back and write thoughtful answers and send that as part of follow-up. So that's another way to go above and beyond. If you have a virtual meeting and there's a whole bunch of people in the meeting and somebody is just really showing up for you and asking great questions and being helpful, why not end that meeting and pick up the phone and call their boss and just say, hey, Erica was unbelievably great in that meeting and she really stood out by the questions she asked and how helpful she was in that meeting. I just want to say thank you. That's it. That's the call. Think about options and listen for ways to go above and beyond. These are just little touches. Pick the one that feels good to you. And I'm going to just comment really quick. I see a comment. How do you feel about a thank you note card? Businesses like handwritten. I tell you what, I actually got a handwritten, I think, Suzanne, you used handwritten one time just as an experiment to send me a thank you note. So Mark, I see your comment. Thank you for this. I feel great about those. Did I know that Suzanne wrote me a computer-generated thank you note? Of course I did. I can see that. It was the thought that counts. I was like, that's a really nice note. We are strongly, strongly in favor of using anything you can to create a touch. And folks, I tell you, even in this weird, strange world we live in now, a physical note still has meaning. And I know that people are freaked out about that. But it has meaning, and people are still opening the mail, I promise you. They are still picking up the phone, and nobody hates getting a phone call that says, hey, Erica really went above and beyond today. I just want to say thank you for her. Wow, those are touches that make a big difference. Okay, full pause. That was follow through. Again, there's more thoughts here, and please keep these comments coming. They're super fun for me to see. I wanted to do just a quick spin through of, I missed a comment or two. And I know you've asked a couple of questions in the Q&A. Thank you for that. I got Mark's question. Some of you are commenting really funny things. I love it. Someone said, that's the one I missed. Someone said, how about complete transparency during these difficult times? Look, you might want to jump in here and clarify your comment because I'm going to make an assumption about this. We're going to talk about this right now as we talk about delivery. So let's spend some time talking about delivery and then we will wrap up. And of course, we will wrap up a few minutes early. So I'm going to talk about several critical elements of delivering in a way that goes above and beyond for people, and simultaneously it goes above and beyond for people and it helps you stand out. So, and then I'm going to jump back to Q&A, but let me take a shot at this question about complete transparency. The first thing in delivery in this moment, it won't last forever, but in this moment is empathy. First, empathy. When you get on a virtual session, the first thing you do is you say, how are you? How is everyone? How's your family? Are you safe and sound? How are you getting groceries? Whatever those questions are. And look, this is not only true in a weird time like now. I think that's complete transparency. Like, it's okay to say, I'm a little freaked out. Like, this is super scary. I have no idea when we're going to come out of this damn thing. That is totally empathy. The word empathy literally means to feel with. And it is the social psychologists, the psychologists tell us that is one of the most powerful things we can do as human beings is just to empathize. So while less is more, and while you're not packing in all kinds of crap in your meeting and overstuffing your virtual selling efforts, make room for the first 5 minutes to just be like, hey guys, how are you? Is everybody okay on your side? How are your kids dealing with it? How's the virtual school thing going? Ask these questions. They're absolutely key. And then again, I'm mentioning my friends Andrew and Suzanne, who I know are with me, and I know you guys got my back here. You guys talk, and I talk a lot about listening at 3 levels. We often, myself included, I am absolutely as guilty of this as the next person, as anyone. We often listen at the surface level. We're listening for what people are saying, and look, that's fine. We have to. Our brain has to. We have to have cognition about what they're saying, but in any time and in this time that we live in, we need to go down a layer and then down a layer again. Second layer is, so first layer is what they're saying. Second layer is why that matters, right? What does that matter? Why does it matter? And then the third layer is, and how does that make them feel? And again, this is empathy all over again. And it doesn't have to be, again, at the beginning, it's about them, their families, how they're doing, how their extended families are. And then once the business starts, it can be about, about things that are happening at work. So, hey, Andrew, so can you share with me in this particular time, why is that the thing that you are mentioning here and I'm going down a level. So Andrew, that's really interesting. What does that do with the dynamic at work? Like, how do you feel about that? And now I'm going down to the third level and really understanding how he's feeling. Listening has 3 levels. Then anyone who knows me on this Insta Live session knows that I think and read and talk and write a lot about impact questions, about asking questions. I call them impact questions. These are questions that Suzanne has this great phrase, they turn people's heads. When you ask a question that is not expected or the usual suspect, you can really turn people's heads with that. And you can ask, I've been asking a question that I learned from one of my students in the winter. This young woman said, I said, what's an impact question you like? And she said, what's the last thing you did for the first time? And I was absolutely stumped. I was like, oh my God, that is a great question. Now, I've been asking that question, having borrowed it from her over the last 3 weeks. And of course, people are saying, shelter in place is the last thing I've done for the first time. And so it doesn't become necessarily an impact question, but you get the gist. What's the smallest action you could take today that would have the biggest impact on your life tomorrow? What's one skill that you've picked up in the last 30 days that makes it easier to be your customer and harder to be your competitor? I would argue that those of you on this live session probably can't answer those questions like that. And that for me makes them impact questions. My push here in the delivery phase of virtual selling is make room for listening. And what drives listening is the ability to ask really good questions. Now, you're not going to pack a 20-minute session in with just impact questions because you would exhaust and annoy people. I've done it. What you want is to mix up your usual suspects like, hey, how's everything shaping up for you right now in business? How's that new team that you're working with? Blah, blah, business question, usual suspect, all good questions, and then land a great question. So that's interesting. So that new team that you're talking about, what's the smallest action that team could take today that would have the biggest impact on the business over the next quarter? Chances are they're going to go, let me think about that. That's a good question. And now you're actually building and deepening a relationship. You're showing up in a virtual environment and you're making room to connect. You're making room for the relationship to grow. It is insanely powerful. I can't emphasize it enough. I have a couple more points, but I'm going to go to a question that I'm not sure. I can't figure out your name by the initials, but this person says, hi, Craig, is prospecting appropriate at a time like this? And if so, how would you go about it? Yes, it is appropriate at a time like this. People need help. If you can help, remember the definition of sales. Sales is about helping people make progress in their lives. And if you have something, you should offer it and you should be prospecting. Now, How do you do it? How do you go about it? You go about it just like this. You start with full empathy. Hey, I know I'm reaching you somewhat cold. I have something that I think is really powerful for you to consider. I know you're flat out against other priorities and sheltering in place and everything that we are all doing. First, let me ask you, how are you? How's your family? How's everything shaping up? And then I would say to this person asking this question, in your prospecting, I would keep it insanely tight. And that means, hey, I think I can offer you something really interesting to think about, and I can do it in 5 minutes or less. Is that a valuable spend of time? Be very, very humble in your boldness of prospecting. And this aligns with a question that my friend Colette asked me a few days ago on LinkedIn in anticipation of this session. She said, how do you balance in a time like this boldness and humility? This is how you do it. Prospecting is bold. Don't stop. Don't stop. If you have something to offer, don't stop prospecting, my friends. That is all about selling virtually, and there's nothing wrong with prospecting at this time. However, do it beautifully. And what beautifully means is humbly. Show up for people. Less is more. Tell them you can add value in 5 minutes or less, or you are done. And mean it. Be done. So these are absolutely critical things, and these questions are really super cool. I'm going to jump to the question feature in a sec because we have, it looks like 7. I'm going to try to tackle a few. Last couple of thoughts. Positive energy. In delivery, it is about positive energy. The best advice I ever got when I started filming videos, and again, you guys will be the judge as to whether I've taken this advice, but I had 2 producers like, Craig, you gotta bring the energy. And I was like, what, are you kidding me? I'm super energetic. And they're like, yeah, no, it's a tiny screen. And I started to think about that, and they said, Craig, you have to fill a tiny screen with energy. You got to use your body. You got to use your hands, use your facial expressions, look into the camera, use your body to fill the energy, fill that screen. And I thought, God, that's great advice. And I've been trying to follow that ever since. And so positive energy. And it, of course, it doesn't mean jumping up and down and screaming and running around circles around your desk. It might. It's just about exuding positive energy. Once you have done your job at the beginning, asking about them and their families and being empathetic, then you can start to ramp that energy up and just say, hey, I am super excited to share some stuff with you today. We're going to name this tune really quickly and give you something to think about. That's my job. You will be the judge as to whether I've succeeded or failed. Here we go. And now your energy. Positive energy. Okay, that was delivery. Now, I'm going to jump to Q&A just for a few minutes and we're going to wrap up. It looks like we have 8 questions. Oh man, I love it. So my friend Suzanne is got a question here. I just clicked on it. I hope you can see it. How do you start the sales conversation now? Suzanne and team, I think it's an angle on what I was saying before. I strongly believe that in a time like now, we also should be showing up into our sales conversations and being explicit about that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I have something to offer. I don't know if it's valuable to you. So I have something to offer, boldness. I don't know if it's valuable to you, humility. And I would love to have a few minutes of your time, to make the case for this as to why it makes sense for you right now. Now, if you can't say that, then you got a problem. That's a different problem. That's an existential and solution problem. But if you do, which I'm guessing all of you here do, then it's about starting the conversation the right way. Suzanne, fantastic question. Let me jump back to some more questions here. How about, is this Mimi? Mimi says, when your energy is not great, how do you talk yourself into bringing positivity into discussion? This is a great question. So if you're feeling blue, which look, we've all been on an emotional roller coaster this last few weeks. I mean, we're all, I know I speak for everybody. We're all worried about our families, the elders, the youngers. It's just nuts. And so what we talk about when we talk about resilience, which is a different topic maybe for a different day based on your feedback, whether that's relevant to you. But when we talk about resilience, one of the things we talk about is compartmentalizing things. And so Mimi, I'm sorry if I'm getting it's just Mimi. I love it. So Mimi, if I'm reading your question right, my suggestion for all of us would be, pick your battles, which means, if you're not feeling energy, And it's one thing to have a call scheduled, and if you're just not feeling it, I totally understand that. Look, you can always reschedule a call. If you're gonna feel like you're gonna show up somber and not be able to stand out and break through, then I would reschedule the call, and I would be very honest about it and say, I am just not feeling it. I hope this doesn't screw up your schedule. That's one option. Now, the compartmentalizing part of my answer is I would suggest that, you say you go in a room, and I'm borrowing here from the famous Amy Cuddy formerly of Harvard, the power pose. Go in the room and just try all those traditional methods to psych yourself up. Say, okay, this time sucks. I feel blue. You know what? I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to reflect on, my mindset is going to be this. How can I help this person on the other end of the line? How can I brighten their day? I'm going to do a service for someone else. I'm going to do it right now. And use the power pose, get yourself fired up. Mimi, I think that's the answer. I know it's not a great answer, but God, there's so much to say about resilience, and I'm gonna hold my thoughts for now in the hopes that we can do this again, and we'll talk about resilience if you want to. Guys, listen, we've got to start wrapping up. It's 12:26. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, just for fun, I thought I would wrap up this Insta Live session with the 6 disciplines of running a high impact meeting. Any meeting, virtual or otherwise, Instagram or otherwise. Discipline number 1, summarize. We've talked about the 3 phases of virtual selling: preparation, delivery, and follow through. We dove a bit more deeply into the second phase, which of course is delivery. There we talked about mainly listening at 3 levels and asking impact questions. Discipline number 2, we call this the check. And 27 minutes ago, you will remember that I said to you, the purpose of today's chat, the live session, is to talk about virtual selling. And what I hope we gain from this are some tips and techniques that we can use to help everyone around us and ourselves. How does that sound? That was my purpose benefit check. So the second discipline of closing a meeting is to say, did this meeting deliver for you? And I will leave that open-ended. I would love to see your comments if it did or if it didn't, because that's feedback to me as well. This question leads to the third discipline, which is closing any meeting. That's the third discipline, is asking for feedback. Given that we're doing this on Insta Live, I'm going to ask that you use the comment feature to give me a did well and a do differently for this Insta Live session. And I really, really appreciate that. It will help me do these better or not at all. And if you need time to reflect on this, please direct message me in Instagram, and I will look through those and sift through those. By the way, speaking of following through, I'll also sift through the comments and the Q&A, and be sure to post some stuff on that. The fourth is action items. That was my action item. So I will look through the comments and the Q&A and post some things if it's valuable. I will read every word of your feedback, direct message or otherwise. The fifth discipline of closing is to schedule our next meeting. I won't be so bold as to do that. I'll wait for the feedback to come in. The sixth and final discipline is to say thank you. I am really grateful that you all showed up. I hope that this was helpful. I will read all the feedback and thank you for your great questions. I wish you all the best. Remember that selling is about helping people make progress in their lives. Please stay safe and keep making good decisions. See ya, everybody.